lovelies, welcome to Sew with Mawa. Today we are going to be learning how to cut out the cowl neckline and the back part with an invisible zip and the bell shaped sleeve as you've seen here. So first we're going to cut out the pattern for the front part, so we have varieties of things to learn here. First, the front part, cutting out the front top pattern. If you know how to do this, then this video you'd skip to the part where you cut out the cowl neckline. So here the shoulder is divided by 2, which is 7 inches, and then all of that part, shoulder to bust, under bust, waist and to hips, and then round upper bust all the way to the round parts divided by 4 and got all those measurements as you've seen here. First we left ½ inches up there, and then measured from that shoulder, ½ inches for the shoulder and allowance for the top, and then from that up, shoulder to bust, upper bust 8 inches, to bust point 10.5 inches, to under bust 14 inches, and then to waistline 16 inches, then to the hip 25 inches. So I just went up to 24.5 inches because the paper was not enough. We still get the same thing. We can just elongate it when we're marking it on the cloth. So shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2, which is 7 inches, and here we marked the 7 inches all the way to the upper bust. Then use our ruler to link both the points from the shoulder to the upper bust. So we marked out the upper bust measurement, round upper bust measurement, round bust measurement, and all other measurements, which was divided by 4 below. So we marked it all the way down. So we linked all those marked out points down to the waistline as you've seen here. So remember I mentioned making out a dart. We don't want it looking awkward. So we made a dart in the middle, which was measured from bust point to bust point. So half of the bust point is 3.5 inches. So it's 7 inches for our bust point. So I measured 3.5 inches from the under bust, waist, first and foremost, as well as the bust. So I drew that straight line from the waist to the upper bust, under bust to the bust point, and linked it like this. So that ½ inches at the down part, half and half on both sides on the waistline, and then marked it, linked it this way, like so. So using that measurement, I had created a new measurement. So measuring and including that I added a new measurement. Then linking it up to the hips. Like this. So here, our shoulder to, after we went down by 1 inch for the slant, our shoulder to upper bust is now 7 inches. 7 inches divided by 2 is 3.5 inches. And then we went in by ½ an inch to have that curve that goes in. So that is a peculiarity about the front part. Then use our curve rule to blend from the upper bust to that point. Then from that point, the midpoint of the armhole to the shoulder. So remember, in this pattern we didn't add any allowance, no sewing allowance. So to make that hole in front, we did 3 inches by the side and 1.5 inches on the front part, and then link them together like this. Don't forget to subscribe and click a like or a notification bell if you still want to see more posts from me. So now, after cutting out the front part, you'd see that her waistline is slim, so the dart is going to cinch in and give it that beauty. So I went down by 3 inches and then linked those openings to the down part, as easy as that. So in order for it not to be sharp on both sides, I used the curve ruler to blend it and give it that curve, so that when I'm sewing, all I have to do is just sew from the dart from points to the curve. So here's the fabric we're going to be using. Because it is light, we're going to double it. Now this is cutting out the cowl neckline. So I folded it and pinned it down like this and left 11 inches at the top. 11 inches just gives it that deep cowl. So if you want to make it not a bit so deep, this is where you'd have to adjust it or go higher and reduce it by maybe 9 inches, 8 inches. But this is just perfect to create this cowl neck. So you see, placing it, just take note of the side. We have 3 inches by the side and 3 inches all the way down. You see at the hip line, the same thing with arm. And then placing that pattern, you remember we didn't put any allowance, so I left half an inch at the edge like this and placed it like this, raised it, curved it this way. So placing the scissors on it so it doesn't move. I measured the half an inch on the sides all the way to the down part. So measuring that half an inch all the way to the waistline is where I'm going to stop, where there is that deep curve. So it's more like dealing with the top part. Then see how it is curved all the way to the, yes, see how it is curved at exactly this point. I see back and forth, back and forth. So put it back and then measure, use the mark to add the half inches all the way down. So just get a perfect shape at the down part. So I did that all the way to the bottom part and added extra because the paper pattern was not to the length I desired. So I just left a little bit here just for ease. It shouldn't be too fitted. If you want it too fitted, you don't need to leave the ease. So I cut out the pattern like this. See how it's doubled. So if you don't want to use the fabric, repetition of the same fabric, you can use the lining underneath it. But in this case, the fabric is soft. I know how it will feel on the person's skin, so I used both parts using this soft fabric. Then by 2 by 2 inches, I ruled at both sides of the corner at the top like this and cut it out. So this is where we're going to have our fold. Yes, fold like this. removed the pin and opened it up. So I use the pin to hold it down together, then bringing back our pattern that has already been cut out. This is how it's going to be used. So we will use this fabric, pin it to the pattern by the armhole, because armhole is just the same measurement. So by the armhole down, it's the same measurement, just the cowl at the top is different. So I pinned armhole down by both sides and made sure I left the ½ inch. Remember that the pattern does not have a ½ inch allowance. So for you, you can leave the ½ inch allowance and just place it exactly as it is. But in my case, I had to leave ½ inch allowance like this. I'll show you turning backwards like this. Can you see? ½ inch out, leaving out sewing allowance of 0.5 inches like this. Then going to our cowl neck. You can already see how it's forming and coming out beautifully. So all we have to do now, the reason why I like this way of cutting out the cowl neck is that it gives that gathers. I love the gathers on the shoulder. In my next video, I'll show you how to cut out using without the gathers. So using our paper pattern and cutting it, opening it up to create a cowl neck. So that is more technical and so the other is more technical, but this one is not. This one is more freelancing. So I folded it by ½ inches, half and half, till I was able to get. So I made sure I folded the parts that will be folded. I love the way it to be heavy at the top, so it drapes down. So that fold we left in the middle, we drape it down. Then folding ½ inches by ½ inches, facing the other way. Like this. So it involves a lot of pinning. So I pinned down the right hand side and went to the left hand side and pinned down. And after pinning down everything, I made sure it was ½ inch up, and if there's anything left or anything out, I'll measure it by ½ inch and cut it out, leaving the ½ inch allowance at the top for joining. So what we did to the right hand side, do to the left hand side as well. So pin it down and ensure it's exactly the shoulder measurement, the shoulder pattern that is down there, like this. So measuring the ½ inch using the chalk, I marked out the parts that will be cut out and trimmed it at the tips. And voila, we have our front pattern. So we're going to sew by that fold. You see how I'm folding it by that tip? So we're going to sew it in and ensure that it's not outside. And voila, this is how we create our cowl neckline. Next up is how to cut the back bodies using the front pattern. So the back pattern is just a single fabric. So I didn't make use of a double like I did in the front. So the difference between the back and the front is the back doesn't have that 0.5 inches deep round arm to go in. So I drew a straight line to ensure we still have that straight line back, and added an allowance, and then added an allowance at the top, because remember we don't have an allowance on the pattern. And the neckline, there was no allowance added, so it was just cut out that way. For the zip line allowance, we rolled it all the way down. I'll show you how to also cut the back pattern so it doesn't have that bulbiness at the back. So I marked out 1/2 inch all the way around, like this. By exactly the waistline, I marked it with the ruler, the chalk like this, and then from the bust line, we'll mark the bust, we'll go in on the waistline by 1/2 inch, then blend it with the bust points, like what we just did with that dart. So that dart in the middle allows us to do this. So we can cut it out and go in like this. So same thing with the down part, 3 inches down, we'll curve and blend it that way, like this. Separating the back pattern, the zip allowance, we will now cut out that part, like this. So it mustn't be sharp, you try to make it have a curve, like look like this. Can you see? All the way to the back. So when you're sewing the zip allowance, it should all be equal. If it's 1/2 inch all the way down, you do the same thing, 1/2 inch all the way down, even to that part we went in. And because of that dart and this dart in the middle, it allows us to do that and still maintain the shape. And voila, we have our back pattern. Wasn't that so easy? Now back to the sleeve. We'll cut out this bell-like sleeve. So the sleeve is just less than 21 inches, but I added it all the way to 24 inches so that we will have the fullness at the bottom as we add our 2.5 inches or 3 inches extra at the bottom. So I measured the focal points, left the 1/2 inch allowance at the top, and then you'd see situations where you measure the arm, the upper arm 6 inches, going down 11 inches, then we have 22 inches. So I used the yellow chalk since the blue chalk is so pronounced. It will take a while to take it out of the fabric. So mentioning those focal points I told you earlier, aside the focal points, you go in by 4 inches and go out by 2.5 inches. So you can either choose 3.5 inches to go in or 4 inches. So I usually use between 3.5 to 4 inches, but I ensure that after I make this curve, it should measure up to 9 inches or 9.5 as I desire, or for a bigger arm, 12.5 inches and the likes. But in this case, we're looking for 9.5 inches, and the 9.5 inches we're going to have a little gathers at the top. Then I measured specifically what her arm measurement is. So her arm measurement all the way to the down part, I measured it, but I didn't make use of it. I made sure that every measurement I was going to use was going to be bigger than whatever her measurement might be. So I measure the midpoint. So the midpoint is 13 inches. Then that's going to be the smallest part of what I'm dealing with now. So we're going to have as you can see, I joined that point of the upper sleeve. I created a bell-like shape at the down part because we're going to have gathers at the ring. See how easy it is to cut this out. Then use our scissors and cut it out. So this is where the gathers is going to be, and voila, we have our outfit. So this is the front part of it and that's the back part of it, and isn't this beautiful? So the next video we're going to show you how to cut out using a technical process, and it's how beautiful it turns out. So please don't forget to like, subscribe and follow. So have a wonderful day and thank you for watching. Bye.